Take a moment to slow down and listen carefully, because this is exactly where so many people, even those who are intelligent and genuinely kind, often stumble without realizing it. We grow up believing that honesty will lighten our hearts, that sharing our feelings is an act of courage and a bridge that brings us closer to others. But when the person standing in front of you is a narcissist, everything stops operating by the usual rules. At that point, you are no longer in a simple conversation. You are stepping into a psychological terrain filled with instability, where every word you say can be twisted, every confession can be turned into a weapon, and every moment of vulnerability can be used to tighten their control over you. And there is one essential truth you must understand. Once you say something, you cannot take it back. If a narcissist learns anything about you, they will keep it, remember it, and use it whenever it benefits them. This is why so many people later feel trapped, even though at the beginning, all they wanted was to share and be understood. That is why, in this video, we will walk through 5 things that may seem harmless, but should never be said to a narcissist if you want to protect your peace, your self-respect, and your emotional well-being. I hope this video will be honest yet gentle, and that it will reach the parts of you that, for a long time, no one has ever helped you put into words. And from here, we naturally move into the first essential truth, the one most people do not recognize until the damage is already done. The first principle: never let someone gain access to your emotional weak points. Imagine this. Inside every human being is a complex emotional structure. There are locked doors, patched up cracks, and narrow passageways you had to learn to guard over the years. Yet in a single vulnerable moment, you might swing that door wide open for someone who has not earned the right to enter. When you tell a narcissist about an old wound, a betrayal, or the exact spot where your heart is most tender, you believe you are building connection. You think, if they understand me better, they will treat me better. But reality works differently. They listen not to empathize but to store information. Not to move closer to you but to identify the precise place where you can collapse the fastest. You see them nod, soften their voice, look at you gently, and you breathe out. Finally, someone understands me. Yet days later, or sometimes within hours, they will pull that very wound into an argument, using it as evidence that you are too sensitive, too dramatic, or always the problem. This is not an innocent mistake. It is a calculated form of manipulation. When you reveal your emotional soft spots, you hand them the key to the deepest room within you, a room even you enter with caution. And once they have that key, it becomes incredibly hard to take it back. Your vulnerability does not make you weak, but it demands discernment. Not everyone deserves access to the most delicate parts of your inner world. A trustworthy person will safeguard the pain you share. A narcissist will turn it into ammunition. So the first thing you must learn is this: keep a part of yourself for yourself, and only open that inner door for the people who have truly shown they know how to handle it with care. And once you understand why your most vulnerable places must be protected, another truth emerges sharper, deeper, and far more dangerous, because it concerns the very things you cherish most in your life. The second principle: never let them know what you fear losing the most. Deep inside every human being lies an anchor point. The one thing that, if shaken, can destabilize your entire inner world. It may be your children, your reputation, your career, your family, or simply the need to feel connected to someone. And because you are sincere, devoted, and honest, you believe that sharing what matters most will help others understand and appreciate you more. But to a narcissist, the moment you reveal that core truth is the moment you unknowingly place your greatest vulnerability directly into their hands. And here is the harsh reality: they will not use it right away. A clever narcissist never destroys the weapon they plan to use later. They wait, they observe, they store that information like a weapon held in reserve, protected, sharpened, waiting for the right moment. They may smile, nod, and pretend to empathize, but internally, you have already been marked. And then, the day you stand up for yourself, The day you say no, or the day you dare to pull away, that is when they strike. If you once said, "My children mean everything to me," one day, in the heat of conflict, you may hear a sentence sharp enough to tear your soul open. Walk away and you'll never see them again. If you once admitted, "I cannot stand being slandered," they will plant subtle, quiet rumors in the shadows, eroding the reputation you spent years building. If you confessed, "I fear being alone," they will punish you with silence, with emotional distance, with an absence so cold it feels like a noose tightening around your chest. You must understand, humans are built upon core values. A kind-hearted person will protect those values for you, but a narcissist will cling to them like vines around a tree, gentle at first, then tightening, draining, and blocking every bit of light you once had. So guard what matters most, the way you would guard the foundation stone of a sacred temple. You may honor it, nurture it, let it guide your life, but never place it in the hands of someone who has repeatedly shown that they respect nothing but power. And once you understand why no one should ever be given the power to touch what you fear losing most, another truth appears subtle, unsettling, and often mistaken for love or kindness. The third principle: never let your need for approval become the collar that controls you. There is a truth many people don't want to admit. We all long to be accepted, to be seen as good, enough, worthy. And because that longing is so deeply human, you become the perfect target for a narcissist. They don't need to raise their voice or threaten you. They don't need force. All they have to do is make you believe that their approval defines your value. It always starts softly, almost harmlessly. You express an opinion, they frown. You share a viewpoint, they smirk. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make you question yourself. Did I say something wrong? And the moment you adjust your behavior to avoid their disapproval, you have already stepped into the trap. Then it happens again and again, until you no longer speak with your own voice. You speak with the version they prefer. You share only what feels safe. You bury your true feelings just to keep the peace. You begin walking on eggshells, terrified that one wrong word could trigger a storm. And the tragedy is this: you may not even notice it happening. A man once said that living with a narcissist feels like standing in front of a mirror that only reflects the image they approve of. Step outside that image even slightly, and the mirror goes dark. They punish you with silence, coldness, or by withdrawing affection abruptly. And just like that, you twist yourself back into the shape they want. That is not love. That is conditioning. Ask yourself, how many choices in your life have been made just to keep someone else comfortable? How many times have you stayed silent to keep the peace while suffocating inside? Here is the truth no one tells you. Approval is not oxygen. You will not die without it, but you will slowly die inside if you must erase yourself to earn it. What you must learn here is simple yet powerful. Stand tall, even if your voice shakes. Let the narcissist dislike you if the price of being liked is losing yourself. And once you understand how a narcissist exploits your need for approval, you must face an even harsher truth, the truth about boundaries. Not the boundaries you speak, but the ones you actually enforce. The fourth principle: never believe that words can replace action. One of the most damaging illusions that keeps people trapped in toxic relationships is the belief that if I explain clearly enough, they will understand. If I speak sincerely enough, they will change. But to a narcissist, your words carry no moral weight. They are not agreements. They are not commitments. To them, your words are simply tools, something to twist, ignore, or use against you if needed. You can repeat, "Please don't insult me anymore. Please don't invade my privacy. Please stop switching my emotions on and off like a light." You can say those things 10 times, 100 times, even 1,000, and they will keep crossing the line, not because they don't understand, but because they are studying you. What do you do when your boundary is violated? For a narcissist, your reactions are data. Every time you stay to explain, every time you try to make them understand, every time you forgive instantly, they learn something crucial. Your boundary lives in your words, not your behavior. Imagine a wolf facing a fence. If the fence is drawn on the ground, it walks across without hesitation. If it is decorative, it pushes it aside with a single paw. Only when the fence is electric, when there are real consequences, does the wolf stop. People are no different. Narcissists even less so. A woman once said she spent 7 years crying, pleading, explaining to her husband not to demean her. 7 years, nothing changed. Until one day, after yet another insult, she didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't explain. She stood up, grabbed her keys, walked out, and disappeared for a week. That week of silence transformed the relationship more than 7 years of words. The lesson is brutally clear. Boundaries are measured not by how well you describe them, but by the consequences you enforce when they are crossed. A boundary without action is merely a plea, and narcissists do not respect pleas. So, if you want to shift the balance of power, don't search for better explanations. Search for stronger actions. And finally, once your boundaries are clearer and your inner voice steadier, there is one last lesson, often the most painful and the most necessary, the lesson about your silence and your past. The 5th principle: never give them your silence and your past as free weapons. There are 2 things people often underestimate until they lose them: the power of intentional silence and the sacredness of their personal history. A narcissist thrives on your reactions. They throw sparks, accusations, distortions, subtle attacks, and the moment you rush in to defend yourself, to explain, to justify, you are fueling the very fire they set. You must understand this. In their game, the more you explain, the more control they gain. Every word you offer becomes material for manipulation. Silence, however chosen silence, is the act of withdrawing oxygen from the room. Without oxygen, the fire suffocates. When you refuse to step into the battlefield they create, every arrow they shoot falls harmlessly to the ground. Silence, in this context, is not weakness. It is sovereignty. It is a fortress. A fortress does not run outside to negotiate with attackers. It stands steady, calm, unmoved, and that very calmness is what drives the attacker insane. But silence is only half of the story. The other half, the far more dangerous one, is your past. The pieces of your life you once thought you could safely confide. The childhood wounds, the moments you were abandoned, the betrayals that shattered you. You believed those were moments of intimacy, moments of trust. To a narcissist, they are not intimacy. They are a structural inspection of your weak points. They listen to every detail, mark every crack, memorize every old scar. And when you grow stronger, when you demand respect, when you dare to say no more, they reach for the sharpest sentence you unintentionally handed them. No matter what you do, you'll always be that desperate little child wanting to be accepted. That line does not come from impulse. It comes from information you gave them. So remember, you can be kind without exposing every wound. You can be honest without being emotionally naked. Your past is a legacy, not ammunition. Give it only to those who know how to hold it without ever turning it against you. If you have stayed with me until this point, then perhaps you are beginning to see a truth you may have avoided for years. It was never just the narcissist who took too much from you. It was you, with all your sincerity and good intentions, who unknowingly handed over too much of your power. Every wound you revealed, every fear you confessed, every time you tried to explain so they would understand, every moment you stayed silent to keep the peace, all of it became bricks in a prison you never realized you were building for yourself. And once that picture becomes clear, the question is no longer, is there a narcissist in my life? But rather, which parts of myself am I still allowing them to own? This is the moment you must return to yourself, not to blame, but to truly witness what has been abandoned along the way. How many times have you swallowed your voice just to avoid making waves? How many opportunities have you let slip through your fingers because you feared someone's disapproval? How many pieces of your most authentic self have you sacrificed simply to maintain a peace that was never real, but merely a quiet form of surrender? And how many years have you spent arguing with people who were never confused? They simply refused to let go of the control you handed them so easily. Part of you may want to turn this video off and go back to what feels familiar, because familiarity feels safe, even when it hurts. But another part of you may be waking up, a thin but unshakable boundary beginning to form, a small but determined voice whispering, "Enough. If you hear that voice even faintly, honor it. Protect it. Let it guide you, because that voice is not anger. It is survival. It is the clearest, bravest part of you, trying to pull you back into the life you were meant to live. And if you ever feel ready to share your story, then share it not for the algorithm, but because someone out there might read it and realize they do not have to be alone in a darkness they never knew how to name. Finally, I want to leave you with a question, gentle, but powerful enough to make your heart pause for a moment. If starting today, you no longer handed the narcissist your fears, your need for approval, or your unhealed wounds, who would you become? Not the smaller version of yourself they needed, but the larger, fuller, truer version you were born to be.